Here we are on part 4, page 665, looking at the heart diagram and learning about the pathway of blood through the heart. So we've arrived at blood now in the right ventricle. The right ventricle has mostly roughened walls, and the roughed walls of the ventricle are called trabecula carneae, or trabeculae carneae, are the roughened walls of both the ventricular chambers. Okay, and as this chamber contracts, it pushes blood upward. It contracts in a wave starting at the bottom, and the wave of contraction continues upward, closing this valve and then opening this valve also with regard to pressure. You'll notice that there's a little smooth area here. Anatomists will name that, of course, because they can see it. And the name is Infundibulum. Infundibulum is the name of this little smooth area preceding the valve here. This valve is referred to as the Pulmonary Semilunar Valve. Let's see if they've named it over here. No. Where have they named it? I'm looking, oh, here it is, the Pulmonary Semilunar Valve. They didn't use the term semilunar. So the deal here is that we have a valve that actually has this shape to it. It has 3 septas, 3 little cups, and the 3 cups fill up with blood from the top and then close. So you can see those cups right here. Okay, and you can imagine that the little cups would fold out of the way when the pressure is on the ventricular side, and then when most of the blood has finished flowing up here into the pulmonary trunk, then the blood will sort of cascade back and fill up these cups and close the valve. So that will be just the passive, natural thing to do. Here we are in the pulmonary trunk, and that's where the blood from the right ventricle goes. It will ultimately go out this way or this way through the pulmonary artery in order to get to the lungs. So these arteries will be serving the blood flow toward the lungs in order to pick up oxygen. Okay, the lungs also have their own, how shall I say, set of blood vessels, arteries, and veins that serve the tissue of the lungs for nourishment and waste product removal, and those have the name bronchial, but bronchial artery, bronchial vein. So this is the pulmonary artery, and you'll notice it's blue in color because it's oxygen poor. It will go to the lungs, and then it will pick up oxygen and return back to the heart here through these pulmonary veins. There's pulmonary veins on the left and also on the right. Okay, and so in either case, these veins are going to come all the way across to the left atrium. Okay, the left atrium, if we look at the back of the heart, is actually more situated on the back even than it is on the left in some ways. But you can see these pulmonary veins coming back there. Okay, so the blood is flowing in. There's very little pectinate muscle here, very little roughened areas of the left ventricle. It was the last, or left rather atrium, it was the last chamber to be made phylogenetically, so it has the least amount of roughened area. It's almost all smooth. Then we get to this really large valve right here, which is much simpler than the tricuspid. It's a bicuspid valve. Okay, and let's take a look here. It's referred to here as the mitral valve, the bicuspid valve, and it has the third name, left atrioventricular or left AV valve. We use the term mitral from historical times when Perhaps the information was coming from Catholic monks or whatever, so the bishops or the Pope would be wearing mitres, and those would be two-sided hats, as it were. And so this is named a mitral valve. It has only two septa. It has these chordae tendineae. It has these papillary muscles. And again, the blood will open it from the pressure of the atrium. Once it's filled up the ventricle, then it's going to contract. This ventricle is extremely powerful, and it should be, the artist should have depicted it with much greater muscle wall than any other chamber of the heart, because this is going to pump blood all the way to the head, to the fingertips, to the toes, everywhere in the body. So the pressure is significant here compared to other chambers. Also, the valve is simple, and so it prevents, hopefully, prolapse back into the atrium. Okay, then as we pump the blood up this way, it's going to get to this valve right here. We can only see the bottoms of it. That's also a semilunar valve, and it's called the aortic semilunar valve. Okay, so the aortic semilunar valve. Okay, so I've depicted some extra things in here, like the AV node, and up here would be the sinoatrial, the SA node. But this is, I'm sort of depicting the bundles of His, or the, how would I say, the neurological bundles that send signals from these points of origin here down and creates an electrical event in the heart that causes contraction. So there are two origins of electricity in the heart, the SA node and the AV node, and the depolarization creates an EMF that causes the flow of a charge, and the creation of then a tension in the musculature, so muscular contraction that occurs in a wave-like manner, going from bottom to top. Okay, so that's our blood flow through the heart out. It's going to end up going through the aortic semilunar valve, out through the aortic arch, and the aortic arch up here is an elastic system that accepts the blood flow and the pressure of that blood flow, and we have three branches of the aorta that are unnamed in this diagram, but that we'll be learning about very soon. Okay, so once the aorta makes that turn, then it becomes a descending aorta. We have some pictures here from above. So here are the semilunar valves, and they have the three cups right there that when they fill with blood from above, then they close nice and snug. Here's the view from above, and the AV valves. Here you can see they will open from, you're looking from the atrial point of view. Okay, over here we have the blood going from the atrium down through the valve into the ventricle, and the blood is pushing it open. Then the blood that's in the ventricle is going to undergo increased pressure due to contraction, and it will close the valve. Okay, and over here we have the blood flowing through the semilunar valves from below, from the ventricles going up, either into the pulmonary trunk or into the aorta, and then the blood in those vessels are going to sort of cascade downward and seat itself into the valve and close it. So there's that situation.